Chosen one, you didn't arrive at this moment by accident. The world did not simply drift toward you with admiration and honor. You were carved by hardship, shaped by the quiet agony of being unseen, misunderstood, and at times underestimated. But through that silence, through that inner storm, something ancient awakened in you. Not a rage, not a thirst for dominance, but a sacred fire, the awareness that you were being prepared. Life was not breaking you down. It was building the foundation of someone who would one day lead not by noise, but by nature. You were not handed your strength, you earned it. Not in applause, but in the shadows. Not in victory, but in the stillness after failure. There were days when no one came to rescue you, so you learned to rescue yourself. And in doing so, you stopped waiting to be chosen. You realized you were the choosing, the one who bore weight with grace, who grew tired without quitting, who remained noble when no one was watching. That's what forged you into the presence you now carry. The world did not tell you how to become this. It tried to distract you from it, tried to water you down, tame you, scatter your focus. But your soul wouldn't allow it, because buried beneath everything was that calling, that whisper you could never silence. You were never meant to follow the noise. You were meant to become the stillness others follow. And now here you stand, no longer a seeker of permission. You've become the one others now seek. That's what this awakening is. Not the birth of ego, but the return of essence. The realization that your deepest strength lies in presence, not performance. That you are not powerful because others believe in you. You are powerful because you finally believe in yourself. You've awakened not just into manhood, but into meaning. And it is that meaning that now carries you, quietly, unshakably, without needing to prove a single thing. Chosen one, the becoming was never glamorous. It was brutal. It was thankless. It was deeply personal. Becoming this man meant letting go of who you thought you needed to be and allowing your real self, your raw, noble, resilient self, to emerge unmasked. And that emergence didn't happen in grand stages. It happened in empty rooms, in long nights where you had to sit with your own pain, your own silence, your own truth, and not run. You stopped reaching outward for healing and started building it within. You faced rejection not once, but again and again, until your identity no longer bent beneath it. You faced your own ego, dismantled your need to be liked, and chose integrity over attention. And slowly, piece by piece, your core solidified. Not because the world finally saw you, but because you saw yourself. Not just the power, not just the good. You saw the shadow. You took accountability. You cleaned your own messes. That is manhood. That is the weight you now carry, not with pride, but with peace. You became the one who could lead without needing control, the one who could love without losing himself, the one who could walk alone without bitterness. And as that energy matured, so did your presence. You stopped chasing chemistry and started seeking compatibility with purpose. You stopped being swayed by loud opinions and started listening to the still, divine knowing inside you. And that shift, subtle, seismic, marked your true becoming. You are no longer pulled by the world's tides. You walk with the current of your own river. The women who encounter you now don't meet a man trying to impress them. They meet a man who has met himself and carries that knowing like armor. You have become not just a protector, but a mirror. Not just a figure of strength, but a source of safety. And that kind of presence is rare. That kind of man is remembered. You didn't just become the man others admire. You became the man who would not abandon himself. And in doing so, you've given others permission to return to their own truth. Quietly, steadily, powerfully, without ever needing to raise your voice. Chosen one, by now you carry something that no title, no praise, no social proof could ever manufacture. It is your presence. That silent, grounded, unbending force that doesn't ask for attention, yet receives it. It's not charisma. It's not charm. It's the result of alignment. The result of a man who no longer fragments himself to fit the room. You are not a shapeshifter. You are not a performer. You walk in your truth so thoroughly that every environment bends subtly toward it without even realizing why. People feel safer, clearer, more honest when you're near, because your energy no longer carries chaos. It wasn't always like this. You remember when your presence was hungry, when you sought validation in the eyes of others, when you adjusted your words to be liked, to be accepted, to avoid rejection. But those days died the moment you decided that you would become the place where approval begins, not the one always chasing it. You cultivated inner peace, and now that peace enters before you do. It settles into rooms. It changes conversations. It calms defenses. And it does so not because you try, but because you are. Women feel this before they hear it. They don't always know what it is. They just know that something about you stillnesses them. That when you look at them, you don't look through them. You're not scanning for benefit. You're not reacting. You're just there. Fully. And it's disarming. It's magnetic. Because they live in a world where presence is rare, where most attention is fractured, agenda-filled, or superficial. You offer none of that. You are the man whose awareness doesn't wander, whose gaze doesn't flinch, whose soul doesn't rush. And that presence is no longer something you wear. It's something you radiate. People follow it, not because you demand their loyalty, but because they trust what they feel when you're around. They trust their own intuition more in your presence. They become more honest with themselves. Your presence is a container, one that holds space without squeezing, one that invites but never intrudes, one that says, I do not need anything from you. I see you because I've already seen myself. And that is a sacred thing. You are not loud, you are not overly expressive, but your energy speaks for you. It speaks in a language older than words. And the message is clear. This is a man who knows who he is, and nothing in this world can take it from him. That message travels through your breath, your posture, your eyes, through your decisions, through your ability to wait when others panic, through your refusal to chase what isn't aligned. You are not here to be everything to everyone. You are here to be rooted, and those who are ready for truth will come closer. Not for attention, or presence. Chosen one, now that your presence is grounded, it naturally becomes a mirror, but not the kind that flatters, not the kind that twists. You have become a truthful mirror, the kind that doesn't distort what stands before it, but also doesn't beg to be looked into. You reflect without demand, without desperation. You don't need to be noticed. Yet when others come near you, they cannot help but see themselves differently. And that is what makes you dangerous, holy, and unforgettable all at once. You don't reflect people's outer image. You reflect their unlived truth. Around you, women feel who they could be if they stop pretending. They feel the version of themselves they've been running from or waiting for. They feel the lies fall away because you are a man who doesn't entertain illusion. You don't flirt with falseness. You don't exaggerate or downplay. Your very being says, be what you are or step back. And that confrontation is often the very thing that changes people's lives. You didn't ask for this. But it happened the moment you refused to lie to yourself anymore. The moment you embraced both your power and your pain, you integrated. You became whole. And now others cannot hide in your presence. Not because you expose them, but because your authenticity reminds them of what they're missing. Your gaze doesn't burn, it reveals. Your energy doesn't chase, it invites honesty. And in that honesty, people either lean in or walk away. Some call it intimidation, but it's not. It's recognition. It's the soul whispering, this man sees clearly, and if I stay here, I'll have to see clearly too. And that's not always comfortable, but it is always sacred. That is what you offer now, not attention, not validation, but a return to truth. And that's why women are drawn to you without knowing why. It's not because you dazzle them. It's because you don't need to. You simply exist in integrity, and that integrity becomes their mirror. You do not use your energy to manipulate. You use it to hold reflection. You are not here to fix anyone. You are here to remind them that wholeness is possible, that dignity still walks this earth, that masculinity is not violence, noise, or control, but presence, protection, and purpose. Your mirror doesn't scream, look at me. It whispers, look at yourself. And that whisper echoes long after you've left the room. You are no longer the one seeking to be mirrored. You are the mirror. And in that reflection, you offer the most rare and radical gift of all: clarity. Chosen one, you've reached the point where your strength no longer burns outward to prove itself. It burns inward to sustain you. You are no longer a wild flame looking to be seen. You are a firekeeper now. That sacred, rare kind of man who knows how to tend the fire of his own soul, how to preserve its warmth, and how to protect it from those who only come close to feel the heat but never intend to honor it. You once gave your fire too freely, hoping it would be enough for others to love you. You once tried to warm the ungrateful, to spark life in those who only drained you. But now, you have grown. You have learned to build a hearth, not a bonfire. You keep your fire in a place of deep honor, no longer scattered in every direction for the sake of temporary company. And this shift is what separates a man of attention from a man of value. Because your energy is no longer about being consumed. It is about being preserved. It is about meaning. You are the man who understands the rhythm of fire. You know when to let it blaze and when to let it burn low in the silence. You know when to guard it from the wind and when to open it to the ones who have earned the warmth. That discernment is everything. Because many will come near your glow, but not all are ready to respect the discipline that built it. You've stopped giving to those who only take. You've stopped lighting paths for people committed to their own darkness. And that decision did not come from bitterness. It came from respect for your own flame. Now your fire lights your path. It warms those walking beside you, not those who try to carry your fire in their empty hands. You are no longer seeking to be the hero in every room. You are simply being the man who kept his fire alive when the world tried to put it out. That fire makes you magnetic. It makes you memorable, not because it screams for attention, but because it burns with consistency. And that consistency is rare. It is why women trust you. It is why even in silence they feel your protection. It is why those in your presence drop their masks, because your fire does not demand, it offers. And in its glow, others feel safe enough to stop pretending. Your energy is no longer explosive. It's contained. It doesn't shout for admiration. It radiates self-respect. You do not need to convince anyone of your value, because your fire already tells the story. A story of nights you didn't give up, of mornings you rose while others hid, of years you gave yourself what no one else could. You are the firekeeper, and your warmth is no longer up for casual access. It is a sacred offering, extended only to those who bring wood, not water. You've become the man who doesn't burn people to stay visible, but who keeps a steady flame that others come to when they're ready for truth. Chosen one, the world will always test your edges. People will always press, prod, and push, some innocently, some selfishly. But you have learned the holy power of boundaries, not as walls to keep love out, but as thresholds to protect the sacredness of your life. You do not set boundaries to punish, you set them to preserve peace. Because your inner world, your time, your energy, your silence is no longer for everyone. There was a time when you said yes to avoid discomfort, a time when your voice went quiet to avoid confrontation. But now, you speak from clarity, not anger. You say no not because you are cold, but because you are clear. And that clarity has become your compass. You don't fear losing people anymore. You fear losing yourself in relationships that don't honor your path. That shift is power. Because now you are not moved by emotional pressure or flattery, you are moved only by alignment. Your boundaries are not about rejection. They are about recognition, recognizing what nourishes you and what drains you, who speaks to your soul and who only feeds your image, what calls you forward and what chains you to smallness. And the moment you learn to guard your energy with quiet confidence, you stopped being available for chaos. You stopped tolerating disrespect. You stopped entertaining distraction disguised as love. And the result? You became undeniable. Women notice. Not just because you set limits, but because you do it with calm authority. You don't shout your boundaries, you live them. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. And that integrity radiates. It says, I am not afraid to walk alone because I refuse to walk with those who dishonor my values. That energy is not harsh, it's healing. Because it invites others to rise, to be better, to show up real. And those who cannot, they fall away without needing to be pushed. You no longer guard your time out of fear. You guard it because it is sacred. You do not share your soul with every hand that knocks. You open it to those who recognize the door is not made of glass, but oak. Solid, weathered, worthy. That is the boundary. Not one of pride, but of purpose. You are not cold, you are clear. And clarity is the most loving boundary a man can walk with. Because it protects not just your future, but the quality of those allowed to walk beside you. Chosen one, not all strength is movement. Not all power is thunder. Some of the greatest forces in this life arrive in stillness, in the way a mountain remains while the storm howls, in the way the tide always returns even after being pulled back. You are that force now. You are the anchor. Not because you try to hold others down or bind them to your weight, but because your presence holds steady when everything else trembles. You have become the man whose peace does not depend on the chaos around him, the man who is unmoved when others panic, the man whose calm says more than their noise ever could. There was a time when you were pulled in 1,000 directions, trying to respond to every need, every voice, every shift in the emotional winds of those around you. You once thought love meant being everywhere, solving everything. But love without self-awareness is martyrdom. And now, you've outgrown that. You no longer flinch when things go wrong. You breathe, you root, you return to center, and in that center you carry the weight that others cannot name, but always feel. Women especially feel it. Not in dramatic displays or heroic declarations, but in the way you simply exist without needing to overpower anything. They rest in your presence not because you silence them, but because you don't require them to hold everything anymore. Your strength has made it safe for them to be soft, to release the armor, to remember that being held isn't always physical, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's the way your consistency creates space for surrender. You are not in competition with the noise. You are the answer to it. You are not the rescuer, but the refuge. Not because you chase pain to fix it, but because pain dissolves around your steadiness. That is what an anchor does. It doesn't stop the waves. It keeps the vessel from drifting, and you've become the man who does exactly that, not only for others, but for yourself first. Because you cannot hold anyone else if you do not first master your own center. You don't argue to be understood. You don't beg to be believed. Your presence confirms what words cannot. Your peace is evidence. It doesn't shout, it settles. And those who come near you don't just feel your strength. They feel themselves start to quiet. You don't speak often, but when you do, the room leans in. Not because your voice is loud, but because your spirit is stable. That stability is magnetic. It doesn't demand trust. It earns it through stillness, through boundaries, through presence. Being the anchor means you are no longer reactive. You are responsive. You choose what to carry, what to release, and what to root into. That discipline has changed everything. You don't rise with approval. You don't fall with rejection. You stand in who you are. And that standing is what makes you the one people look to, not as a savior, but as a signal. A reminder that strength can be quiet, that power can be peace, that a man who doesn't need the world to slow down to be grounded is already leading. Chosen one, you've stopped trying to fix everything. That was a younger version of you, the one who confused love with rescue, presence with problem solving. But now you know that healing doesn't always happen through solutions. Sometimes it begins through witnessing, through simply seeing someone fully and letting them know, you don't have to carry this alone. That kind of presence doesn't come from a script, it comes from integration. From being the man who has sat with his own darkness long enough to hold space for others in theirs, without fear, without control, and without judgment. You have become a witness, not to drama, not to noise, but to truth. You don't speak to be heard. You speak when the moment is sacred. You don't impose your view. You listen until the room reveals its real need. And when you do speak, it is never to dominate, it is to direct. Not through force, but through frequency. You are tuned to a deeper current now, one that most people have forgotten how to hear. But women feel it. They feel it in your patience, in your attention, in your refusal to interrupt. You don't rush, you don't diagnose, you let people arrive at themselves through the safety you embody. That safety is rare. In a world where everyone performs, you offer presence. In a world that races, you offer rhythm. You are the man who allows things to unfold instead of trying to control them. You have nothing to prove anymore. That's why your attention is so powerful, because it's not a performance, it's a gift. And that gift doesn't say, I can fix you. It says you are safe to be real here. And it's not just women who feel this, men do too. Friends, brothers, strangers. They stop pretending around you. They stop boasting. They drop their ego. Because you are no longer playing the game of status. You are operating in a completely different frequency. one that humbles arrogance and soothes insecurity. You do not compete, you witness, and that witnessing is what begins the transformation in others. Not because you demand it, but because your presence makes it impossible to stay asleep. You are a mirror. You are a rhythm. You are the moment of quiet someone didn't know they were aching for. And you've earned this not by avoiding pain, but by walking through it with your eyes wide open. That's what makes you trustworthy. That's what makes you the one others come to. Not when they want attention, but when they are ready for truth. You are the witness who reminds them that they are not too much, that they don't have to shrink, that there is space to be whole again. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every man's journey when he stops trying to meet the standard and starts becoming it. That moment changes everything. It's not marked by loud celebration or grand recognition, it's quiet. In fact, the world doesn't notice right away, but you do. You begin to realize that you no longer compare yourself to others. You no longer ask what you're supposed to be. You walk with the understanding that you are the reference point now. Not out of arrogance, but because you've done the work. You've bled into your purpose. You've suffered with intention. You've carved your character from the granite of difficulty, and now you carry the presence of a man who does not waver. You are not here to be trendy. You are here to be timeless. You do not bend your values for access. You do not dilute your truth for comfort. You have become a pillar, not because you demanded loyalty from others, but because you earned it from yourself first. That self-loyalty is rare. It's why people look to you now, not to lead them like a king on a throne, but to remind them what's possible. You are the living proof that discipline doesn't kill freedom, it creates it. That boundaries don't make you unkind, they make you consistent. That power without peace is noise, and you've chosen silence with strength. Women notice this instantly, even when they can't explain why. They feel it in the way you speak with clarity, but never with need. In the way you hold space without demanding praise. In the way you walk away from drama, not with anger, but with precision. You are no longer the man who adjusts himself to be liked. You are the one others adjust to, not because you expect it, but because your alignment exposes their own misalignment. Your energy doesn't say, "Follow me." It says, "Respect yourself enough to rise." That alone has set a new standard. You don't chase opportunities, they flow towards your consistency. You don't beg for trust. You've become trustworthy through integrity that doesn't collapse when no one is watching. And when people ask how you became this way, there is no single answer. There was no shortcut. You just refused to lie to yourself anymore. You stopped trading your essence for comfort. You stopped measuring success by popularity. You set your own rhythm, and now others tune themselves to it. That is what it means to be the standard, not to dominate others, but to reveal what they've forgotten in themselves. You didn't rise above people. You just went deeper within. You didn't become the standard by seeking control. You became it by becoming unshakable. In your choices, your voice, your silence, and your soul. Chosen one, legacy is not about how many people remember your name. It's about what they remember in themselves because of you. You are no longer just living for impact. You have become impact. Not through noise, not through conquest, but through the quiet transformation your presence leaves behind. Your journey has never been about building an empire of things. It's been about building a life of meaning. And now, meaning follows you like a shadow, even in the moments you think no one is watching, especially in those moments. You have stopped asking what the world owes you. You've started asking what your spirit demands of you. And it demanded everything. Your excuses, your comfort, your masks. It asked you to bury the boy who needed to be validated, and to raise the man who validates others simply by existing. That man now walks with purpose, not pressure. With grace, not guilt. You do not move for applause. You move because your soul compels you. You do not act to be seen. You act because you've seen too much to stay silent. Your legacy is not built in moments of glory. It is built in how you carry your truth when no one claps, no one praises, and yet you keep going anyway. You have become the one people remember in their silence, the one whose absence is felt more deeply than most people's presence. Not because you demanded attention, but because you brought alignment. You brought healing without performance. You brought power without ego. You brought presence that shifted rooms and raised standards without saying a word. And for many, you are the proof that real men still exist. Not perfect, not posturing, but principled. Women do not simply admire you, they recalibrate around you, not because you flash status or seduce with games, but because your energy leaves no room for games. You see through them. You see through everything. And in that seeing, you become the final voice people hear before they change their life. Your legacy is not loud, it is deep. It lives in the way someone walks differently after meeting you, in the way someone speaks with more honesty, sets boundaries with more courage, or refuses to settle one more time. Your legacy is what they remember themselves becoming when they were in your presence. This is who you are now. Not a title, not a role, but a force. Not shaped by flattery, but by fire. Not inflated by attention, but sculpted by remembrance of who you've always been beneath the noise. Chosen one, your legacy has already begun, and it speaks in every room you leave behind, quietly, completely, and without needing to be explained. Chosen one, you've become more than a man. You've become momentum. A force that others recognize not because of the speed you carry, but because of the direction you refuse to abandon. You do not wake up seeking escape. You wake up seeking excellence. Not to prove you're better, but because you've come to realize that when you rise, others remember they can too. And that remembrance has become your ripple effect. Men no longer see you as competition, they see you as confirmation. That being noble, being sharp, being rooted, being relentlessly focused on becoming, is still possible. You've become the man who doesn't hide his past but turns it into scripture, who doesn't run from pain but builds from it, who doesn't brag about wins but wears losses like armor. You don't have to say, "Look at me," because your life has become the mirror. And in that mirror, men see what they could be if they stopped negotiating with mediocrity and started aligning with their own unshakable truth. And the women, they're no longer just drawn to your magnetism. They're drawn to your integrity, your discipline, the peace you carry without asking for praise. They notice how your hands don't reach before your spirit speaks. They see how your eyes don't wander, not because you don't see beauty, but because your loyalty is internal. You've become the man who honors himself so deeply, no woman ever needs to wonder if she'll be honored too. She knows, she feels it. You are no longer her dream. You are her reality, come into form. Not because you promised her a castle, because you became the foundation. You are not offering her a life of luxury. You are offering her a life of presence, of clarity, of emotional consistency, of purpose-led action. She's not drawn to your appearance. She's drawn to your alignment. And when she stands near you, she doesn't imagine being saved. She imagines what it would feel like to build something eternal. That's the power of your energy now. It doesn't just seduce, it stabilizes. It doesn't just attract, it anoints. You are no longer the storm, you are the weather pattern that everything else must adjust to. You don't follow trends, you make the ground shake with your presence alone. That is why men aspire to be you, because you have broken through the surface and tapped the divine within. You are now the man who moves mountains, not with anger but with intention, who changes lives not with charisma but with consistency, who earns respect not by raising his voice, but by being unshakably clear in his silence. This is the place very few reach, because it demands everything. It demands that you die to who you once were, that you bleed on the path until the parts of you that cannot lead burn off, that you stop blaming and start becoming. But you did it, and now, you don't have to say a word to dominate. You just enter the room. Chosen one, you were never meant to play small, just to protect the comfort of those who were not ready for the depth of your light. You didn't arrive in their lives with the intent to shatter illusions, and yet your presence alone unraveled them. They were expecting charm. They were expecting the same games masked in new faces. But what they encountered instead was the unfiltered force of a man who no longer performed, a man who no longer sought approval, a man who had already looked into the abyss within himself and refused to flinch. And that chosen one is what truly broke them. Not your actions, not your absence, but your truth. A truth they had long stopped believing was real. You didn't try to win their hearts. You didn't wear a mask of seduction. You didn't inflate your worth to appear desirable. You simply were. calm, unmoved, awake. When others fidgeted in insecurity, you stood grounded in your own silence. When they searched your eyes for a hook, they found a mirror instead. And mirrors don't lie. You didn't promise them a future. You offered them the present, fully, vulnerably, and with unwavering intention. But here's what made the heartbreak so unforgettable. You never needed them. You never wrapped your value around their validation. You gave presence, not persuasion. And in a world addicted to being chosen, you were the one who had already chosen yourself. That power doesn't just attract, it disarms. It terrifies those who are still chasing reflections in others, still bargaining with their own worth. Because in your stillness, they had to sit with their noise.